What's up? How we doing, y'all? Happy Thursday, we chillin'. Oh yeah, Ellie, this game is so fucking cute, I'm obsessed. For anyone who doesn't know, we are playing Our Life Beginnings and Always, where we follow this little sweet boy, Cove. His name is Cove Holden. He is a soft boy, he is an ocean boy, and you essentially grow up next to him. You will get a peek of him today as we are currently playing. We are on Derek's DLC at the moment, though. I believe Cove shows up in this one. Can you not see it? Hold on. Let's make sure it's showing. You should be seeing it on my end. Hold on, I will pull it up real quick on the iPad to make sure that we are good. 1 second, Ellie. I will let you know if it's just you. You can see it now? Beautiful. Okay, just checking. Oh, gave me a scare there, friend. But yeah, this is Our Life Beginnings and Always, and if some shit goes down where you can't see it, yell at me, be like, hey Blake, we can't see shit, and we will fucking fix it. But yeah, right now we are getting to know Derek Suarez a little bit better, and honestly, adorable little dude. If I had to describe him in like a short summary, he has golden retriever energy. He is the definition of, I'm sure y'all have seen those videos over on TikTok where the girls, record their boyfriends or their husbands and they're like, right before he sees me, and then they completely like perk up. That is Derek in a nutshell. He's very much like the cheerleader. He very much wants to just support and be super fucking sweet. But yeah. Last time, I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna own up to my mistake here. Yesterday, I made the mistake of saying that we were gonna get through Responsible, Lemonade, and Siblings. As you can see here, that did not happen. We spent 2 hours on Responsible, and I was a little shook. I guess I forgot that some DLC is much longer than other moments. So today, our goal is to just get through Lemonade. If we get through Lemonade, I will call that good. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now. Shit's been a little wild. Also, bear with me, my reading out loud skills are not the greatest, but we make do with what we have. And with that, we are going to hop right into it. It was afternoon on a sleepy summer day. Nothing urgent needed to be done, no real plans had been made. You and your company were simply hanging out around the local beach, free as the breeze. It was one of those good days where the world was your own and you had two of your close friends there to enjoy it with. Derek was on your left and Cove was on your right. 3 pairs of footprints trailed along in the soft white sand behind you. Derek had only been dropped off minutes ago. He'd brought with him those clothes you had to leave at his house after your night swim. You had taken a minute to put them away. But instead of everyone going inside your house or heading to Cove's, you simply started to walk. It was definitely hot out. Southern California tended to get that way, but it wasn't so bad that you had to hide away from the beating rays of the sun. Cove's hands were in his pockets. He spoke out while facing away from you. Instead, he lazily watched the unchanging horizon. What do you guys want to do? You and Derek took on matching squints. Usually, there'd be endless answers to that question, but the lack A discal mood made it feel like trying to solve math problems in a dream. No, I haven't watched Orange is the New Black. I've heard a lot about it. It's on my list. At some point I want to give it a watch, but haven't gotten there quite yet. You had nothing. Your thoughts were moving as slowly as the tide that inched towards the shore bit by bit. Finally, the resident problem solver offered a possibility with a yawn and a tall stretch of his arms over his head. "Wanna walk to the grocery store?" "What?" Cove twisted his face to the opposite side and stared at Derek. A stuttering laugh expressed his disbelief. "Why would we go grocery shopping?" With a shrug, Derek scratched his cheek and explained. "Well, it's probably different here, but where I live, the closest place to get stuff isn't a convenience store or a mall or anything. It's a grocery store. So sometimes me and my bros will take a trip down there and see what we can find." For real, I love this game. It's such a calming energy after everything on TikTok. It's just, this is my therapy. Hanging out with my little fictional visual novel boys is my therapy after TikTok. I'll try if you want to. I trust Derek. I think Derek's a good dude. I trust him. Yeah, I'll try if you want to. Derek stuck a thumbs up in front of his chest, open and excited. Cove folded his arms across his body, unsure, and closed off. "It's really not like normal errands. You can get anything you want. There are a lot of things at the store you never even think about when you're there with your parents, and a list of stuff for the house." Cove's formerly heavy, droopy lids lifted high, showing his bright blue eyes. He glanced between you and Derek for final confirmation that you were seriously doing this. Derek had complete confidence in his stance. "It could be interesting." The corners of your neighbor's mouth perked up as well. "Okay, let's go grocery shopping." "Cool." It was another successful bit of improvising on Derek's part. He put his hands on his hips eagerly. "I'm pretty sure I know where your store is, but the two of you should probably lead the way." "Leave it to us." Cove puffed his chest out with pride. He was a true local to the town after being there for so many years. And your walk continued, now with an actual destination in mind. You retraced the remains of your steps in the sand, heading back to the neighborhood, then up the hill and out of the residential area. When you turned onto Main Street, the grocery store was already visible in the distance. It also wasn't going anywhere, so you enjoyed the stroll together. You would arrive when you arrived. Derek continued to sell the concept of his plan by recounting stories of him and his brother's past adventures in grocery land. "So we'd gotten super lucky 'cause the discount rack had a whole cherry pie for way off. Me, Jorge, and Nico pooled our pocket change to get it, and then we had an entire pie just like that. We sat outside on a bench near the store and ate it from the pan. It was cut into 6 slices. I only let the kids have 1 piece each. It was already a lot of sugar. I didn't want to make them food sick." Derek really is just like he's the oldest, so he really just is like a little dad to them, and it's both sad and cute because he shouldn't have that responsibility, but he's also so sweet about it. I tried to come up with how we were going to explain half a pie to Mom, but Nico had his own idea. He took a slice that he wasn't allowed to eat and instead threw it at Jorge. Cove's mouth gaped open at the audacity. Derek laughed out loud at the memory and the response it got in the present. He'd been watching way too many cartoons with food fights and pies to the face, I guess. You'd believe that. If there was one thing Nicholas loved, it was Derek. And if there was another, it was cars. And if there was a third, it was copying things he'd seen others do. Obviously, Jorge didn't let that slide, and he took the fifth piece of the pie and squished it right into Nicholas's head. His hair was covered in dark cherry goo. Oh no, your poor mother. It was a mess, but if you can't beat them, join them. I dumped the last piece of the pie on myself. Why? It stopped them from fighting over it, and they would have ended up feeling bad if they got messy and I didn't. Nicholas doesn't think very far ahead. Oh, what did you do next? We found a water fountain around the back of the grocery store and tried to scrape off as much pie as possible. Then we went home. Mom still figured out what happened, and we all had to take real baths. That was a good time. A fond smile settled on Derek's face. He glanced up to the sky while getting lost in an entirely private moment of reminiscing. Cove was still reflecting on the story with amusement. That really is adorable, if I'm being so honest. That's the sweetest goddamn thing. Thanks. Cove ruffled a hand through his hair, possibly considering how it might have felt to have an entire pie crushed into his locks. He smirked. A pie-throwing fight is way more memorable than I would have guessed. The most unexpected thing that happened to me when out shopping was that time I got a free balloon and accidentally popped it pretty much immediately. Oh shoot. It was Derek's turn to chuckle in nervous disbelief. His grin shook just imagining it. It's okay. Not rest in pieces. Oh no. Okay, I have to go with the rest in pieces, Dolphin Balloon. Yeah, rest in peace. The conversation stayed on the topic of store-related outings. Naturally, that time you all went to the mall with Lee and technically Kyra too was discussed. Where Cove's mom went during that trip was still highly speculated, but there were theories. The chat didn't last much longer though. Soon you crossed the street and arrived at Sunset Bird's local mom-and-pop grocery store. I feel like I do this all the time, but just look at the art. Even in a grocery store, they did so good on the art for this game. The orange juice and the cup noodles, it's just so fucking cute. I'm obsessed. I love it. You and your two co-shoppers headed right through the automatic doors. A shiver went down your spine when you stepped out of the afternoon heat and into the powerful air-conditioned store. Shiny, orderly aisles stretched out in front of you. Each one was tightly packed with a plethora of brightly packaged merchandise. To some people, the rows and rows of items might have been a slog to go through, but seen through Derek's eyes, it was a scavenger hunt with endless opportunities. Though, it was Cove who spoke first. Do we need a cart? Probably not. Derek casually waved that off, eyes still fixated ahead on the altar of consumerism ahead. We're here for quality, not quantity. Besides, do we even have enough money to buy a ton of things? Oh, wait. Cove suddenly burrowed his hands into his pockets once again. He tucked them in deep, but didn't find what he'd gone in search of. I don't have my wallet. It's at home. Me neither. I thought we'd just be in the neighborhood all day. Yeah. It's cool, I figured. Derek's lack of a reaction couldn't smooth over Cove's obvious response to the situation. His wavy eyebrows pulled down together. We could have stopped by to get it before we left. Nah, this was my idea, so it's my treat. I've got like $8 and some change. That's enough for all of us to spend around a few dollars or put it together for one thing. That's gonna be plenty. I promise I'll pay you back. $3? Not even that much? It's really no big deal. He's so stressed out. Look at him. He's like, let me do this for you. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna pay you back. Deal with it. I still want to. I will too. Fine, you guys win. Cove's hands finally deserted his pockets and one came up to rub his forearm instead. Okay, thanks. Let's get something good. Derek took a few steps forward as he cheered. All right, here we go. You went down the nearest aisle, swiveling your head to check both sides of the path as you swung your currently empty of goods arms through the air. The first stop of the market expedition was the discount rack in the back. You didn't have the same luck as Derek and his little brothers. It was the only place in the store that was barren. One shelf had several dented cartons of chicken stock. Stuffed in the bottom of the rack was a bag of plain rolls. The sight was pretty pathetic. Too bad. He shrugged like it was nothing, but his words told a different story. It would have been easy if there was a pie here, or a cake, or one of those pans with a bunch of cinnamon rolls. Wistfully, Cove continued to mumble a list of miscellaneous pastries that you might have potentially been able to get if the fates had aligned. Good. This keeps things interesting. Definitely. There's still plenty of possibilities. And if push comes to shove, we could offer a smaller treat, like getting 3 boxes with 1 slice of cake each. We wouldn't eat more than that anyway. Maybe you would eat just 1. Yeah, Cove could eat half the pie himself. Wow, alright. It's a good thing we didn't find one then. Hey! You pushed past the already pilfered treasure chest and continued to chat. You passed cereals, pastas, and sauces, an aisle full of chip bags and soda packs, and more. The dry goods and canned foods now behind you, you arrived at the produce section. The arrangement of goods was much more open than the narrow rows of shelves. The 3 of you could spread out more in between pallets and baskets of fresh fruits and vegetables. Derek grabbed an avocado to check its ripeness. Cove stared at the watermelons, appreciating the fruit, but his blank face made it obvious he had no idea how to tell if they were good quality or not. For real, can I talk about that for a second? While I absolutely love watermelon, I do not understand how people like check it for like good quality watermelon. Like, I've seen so many little cheats and hacks, some of it having to do with the outside, some of it's like, oh, depending on how heavy it is, and then there are the people that like knock on the watermelon or whatever, and I'm like, does the watermelon tell you secrets? I have a lot of questions. On how y'all they'll knock on it or poke at it and then the sound lets them know that it's a good one. I don't get it. I so desperately wish I knew how to pick out a good quality watermelon because watermelon is like my favorite goddamn fruit. But who knows? Perhaps I'll never know, and that's fine. Then a recognizable crackling sound spluttered to life. Both the boys with you lifted their heads. Without conversing, the two rushed over to the back wall where the leafy greens were piled up. A light spray of mist burst from the sprinklers, raining down gently on the produce. Cove and Derek stuck their hands into the damp air while snickering. Derek rubbed his hands together to pretend he was washing them. Cove lifted his hands up to be as close to the source of water as possible. Stick your face into the misting. Why not? Be chaos. You made your own dash across the floor to enjoy the tiny dusting of water droplets on your cheeks. The impromptu public shower ended shortly, and it was back to the center of the space for you. Knowing grins were shared around as you regrouped. There was a comfort in realizing someone else had the same silly habit as you. With the distraction over and the main goal unresolved, Cove helplessly glanced around the store. He was totally stumped. There's a lot of things I like, but I don't have to get any of it now. How do we pick? There was a whine in his tone, and he crossed his arms out of frustration. Derek kept it light, same as he would when dealing with his much younger siblings. Dude, you need more imagination. Turn lemons into lemonade. Actually, wait, yeah, that's what we should do. We can get some lemons and make our own lemonade. The concept struck Cove just as much as Derek. Oh, that would be cool. Sure, I mean, I myself in real life don't like lemonade, but shh, for the sake of the summer moment, we're gonna pretend it's fine. Great. Derek marched with purpose to a box that was heavy with mesh bags of the desired yellow citrus. He tapped a finger to his chin, then bounced from one foot to the other. Derek was suddenly a lemon connoisseur who scrutinized the offerings with utmost focus. He selected 2 bags, one in each hand. The bottom of each pack was set against his upturned palms. Derek jiggled the lemons and tried to get a sense of their weight. Finally, the bag on the right was deemed superior, and Derek carefully laid the unwanted bundle back onto the stack. Then he lifted the winner high, showing it off to Cove and you. I've got my thing. It's only $3. Your turns. This time, Cove didn't look aimlessly at what was in front of him. He just shut his eyes and put all his mind's power into conjuring up an answer. Soon he stole a quick glance at Derek's lemons through squinted eyes, and then he took his turn. Come on. Let's do it. He made another trip across the length of the store, this time at a much brisker pace. Cove had a target in sight, even if you couldn't see it yet. He blew past all the food aisles, the pet shelves, and the cleaning supplies. He only stopped when you made it to the one random aisle in the store with cheap plastic kids' toys. This is it. His words were eager and certain. There was a childish excitement to Cove that was fitting for the location. He reached a hand into the wall with yo-yos and bubble blowers. His fingers landed on a baggie of water balloons. Drinking lemonade is gonna make me want to have fun outside too. We can use this for that. Perfect plan, Cove. Good work. Thanks. For all his previous indecision, the sweetness of victory was all the more worth it for Cove. His selection was even cheaper than Derek's, $2 and a bit of change. All that was left of Derek's money was $3 and your choice of prize. Derek patiently cradled his bag of lemons while Cove watched you expectantly, excited to see what the final piece of the puzzle would be. You reflected on the theme that was forming, your own preferences, and the shareability of different goods. In the end, you opened your mouth and said, we could get the little umbrellas for the drinks. Yeah, I think I'm gonna team up with Derek on this one and get little umbrellas to go in the drinks. I think that's cute. Excellent, Blake. You got to lead the way out of the toy aisle and back into the thick of the grocery store traffic. You wound around the aisles until you found the right spot. You took another minute to pick out the best little umbrellas and then you were done. With items in hand, you, Derek, and Cove went through the checkout line. Derek dug out his pocket change and paid for your odd arrangement of items. None of you bothered to get a bag. Derek's was already in one, and you and Cove could easily carry your things on your own. After a successful grocery trip, you returned to the great outdoors to walk back to the neighborhood. This kind of outing reminded you that it wasn't about what you were doing, what counted was who you were doing it with. Outside, you gathered in front of the crosswalk and waited for a chance to get back on the main sidewalk. While standing around, it was unanimously decided that you'd bring your goods to Cove's house and make the lemonade there. Your home was at risk of Elizabeth deciding she wanted a pre-dinner snack. She wouldn't appreciate having a lemonade-making operation in the way. There was no worry of that in the Holden condo. Cove's mom and dad were out, and even if they weren't, they were his parents, not his bossy big siblings. They wouldn't even dream of throwing the three of you out of the kitchen to use it instead. Derek was thinking along similar lines based on what he said next. Honestly, man, I can't wrap my head around what it's like to not have any siblings hanging around the house at all. I don't mean that you're weird for that, just it's gotta be so different. Is it? I have my dad here. My mom is staying right now too. Yeah, but that's not the same. Parents take care of the kids and the kids have a bunch of stuff they need. Every day has to be about me and my brothers. If we go out to eat, will everyone like the stuff there, or will Jorge be too picky? Are we all old enough to do whatever the thing is, or is Nicholas too little? My birthday is the only time I can do everything that I want for the whole time. And I still choose to keep my bros in mind, even though my parents don't make me. I don't mind, but it's crazy imagining a world where I don't have to do that. Huh, I hadn't thought about that. Cove's eyes darted back and forth, and he bit the inside of his cheek. I guess having siblings or not changes how someone thinks. I figured people would be who they are no matter what, but maybe I would have needed to be at least a little different if I had to share my parents and life all the time. I feel like there is some truth to that, but I also think it very much depends. 'Cause like take me for example, I technically have an older half sibling, but I was raised an only child, and I feel like only children specifically will get this reputation and this like stigma, not stigma, like this stereotype of, oh, only children are spoiled rotten and they don't know how to share, they don't care about anyone but themselves because they always get their way and da 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 da, and that kind of thing. So yes, there are some parts that I think can potentially shape you, And then I think other parts you're just destined to kind of be already. Like, I'd like to think if I had 5 siblings or if no siblings, I would still, for the most part, be who I am. Maybe little things would shift, but overall, I think I'd still be me. I also have like a crap ton of cousins though, so when it came to family events, they were still very big and chaotic, but who knows? That's definitely an interesting. I feel like that can be brought back to like what actually forms you as a person. That would be a really interesting way to kind of lead into the whole nature versus nurture debate that will never be over as long as we exist as humans. But anyways, back to it. Yeah. I think my character dealing with Elizabeth could definitely relate to Derek. They cave to Elizabeth's bullshit a lot. Elizabeth definitely has impacted my existence. Yep, siblings do that. But the road was clear, so Derek got the conversation and his legs moving again. He started preparations by listing off what you'd need to gather when you made it back. Sugar, ideally some ice, and really cold water, a pitcher or something like that. Do you have one of those lemon squeezers? We can do it by hand if we've gotta. With every object Derek recited, Cove nodded along plainly, but he was watching something off in the distance. His faraway thoughts made Derek's words reach him less and less until Derek noticed the lack of reaction. He called to Cove more loudly to catch this attention. Are you okay, dude? Oh. Cove blinked as his brain snapped back into place in the center of his head. It's nothing. What were we talking about? Derek spun his lemon bag into a mini tornado by twisting it around tight from the bottom and then releasing it. He snickered. No worries, I was just making plans for making the lemonade. Okay. The rest of the trip passed by comfortably. Derek carried the conversation, and Cove really paid attention from then on. Once you'd arrived in your neighborhood and reached Cove's front door, the resident of the building opened it up without needing a key. It was already unlocked. Derek gasped upon seeing such a lack of security. Cove, however, was so relaxed and content that he yawned while going inside. That unknowingly cut off Derek's chance to question Cove about his choice not to lock the door. He simply followed his friend inside, and you did as well. Cove leisurely crossed his living room to drop his bag of water balloons on the coffee table for later. You left your little umbrellas there alongside it. All right. Derek went straight into the kitchen. He had his lemon bag over his shoulder like a gym pack and flipped it over to sit it beside the sink. He slipped his thumbs through the holes of the mesh and tore it. Where's your colander? Cove paused, looking incredulously at the wall. Then he turned and projected his confusion across the counter towards the source of it. My what? Undeterred, Derek was quick to offer a rephrase. A strainer. In the lower cabinet. The one on the left. Derek pressed his hands into the marble and leaned forward with a grin. Thanks, Cove. Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard a strainer be called a colander in my life either. Really? Wow. Then the spiky-haired chef ducked down and disappeared from your sight. If you could call someone who made lemonade a chef, that is. When he popped back into view, framed by the back wall and the support beams at the front of the kitchen, Derek was holding a silver strainer. He plopped it into the sink, and it sharply clunked against the metal basin. Derek took the bag he'd set nearby and dumped every single lemon into the waiting container. He turned the faucet so he could clean the cherry fruits. The sound of running water added an extra layer of relaxation to the atmosphere. Cove stopped dawdling and joined the already hard-at-work Derek in the kitchen. He grabbed a cutting board and a large knife from the upper drawer. It was his house, and he'd wordlessly claimed responsibility for the riskiest part of making the lemonade. Cove also directed you towards the sugar and a few other things. As it turned out, Mr. Holden didn't have an actual lemon squeezer, so you were going to have to do that by hand. He did have a perfectly crystal clear glass pitcher that'd be perfect for the lemonade. The body of it was a completely round ball shape. It had a narrowed edge that pulled in at the top, and one side pinched into a spout. As far as you could tell, it'd never been used. "Have you made lemonade before, Blake, Cove?" Derek casually questioned both of you while he hefted the so-called colander up and down to shake off some of the water clinging to the freshly washed lemons. "Taco salad for dinner and having cheesecake later. Solid, I'm jealous." "I want a cheesecake." Back to the lemonade, though. Nope, never made lemonade in my life. I don't drink lemonade, I don't like lemonade in real life, nothing. I've made really simple lemonade before, just for me. I'd squeeze one lemon into a glass of water and dump in a spoonful of sugar. It wasn't that great, but it was easy. Cool. Derek hummed while placing lemons on a clean kitchen towel. He took a fruit from the colander with his left hand, passed it over to his right, and placed that down while grabbing a new one. I've made it before too. Fresh lemonade is so good. I'm excited for this. So am I. Your tools were all prepared now, so the team shifted into the actual creation of the traditional summer drink. Cove would cut the lemons into chunks. Derek gave Cove a tip to roll the lemons against the board before slicing them to get the juices going. You and Derek worked hard together to squish the fruits. You squeezed the lemon parts over the pitcher itself with a smaller strainer balanced over the mouth of it to catch the seeds. Piece by piece, you crushed the thick peel into itself to pop the little sacs of juice in the fruit. The tips of your fingers began to wrinkle after a while. But slowly, a murky liquid pooled at the bottom of the glass container. When enough fruits were chopped, Cove joined in the juicing effort. The three of you huddled around the counter together. You leaned over the one pitcher and strained to get everything you could out of the little yellow menaces while not accidentally squirting acid into anyone's eyes. The precariousness of the situation aside, Cove continued the conversation with a question of his own. "Derek, you've made lemonade, but did you ever do the whole lemonade stand where you try to sell it to random people who pass by?" "Oh yeah, it was a mess, and I think we only sold like 2 cups. Nicholas kept drinking our supply, and Jorge's effort to stop him spilled even more of it. Plus, the 2 kids fighting over the lemonade jar probably scared people away from the stall. But it's not like I was expecting that to be some kind of entrepreneurial success. It was for Nico and Jorge to have fun, and they did, mostly." As usual, tales of Derek's endeavors as a big brother got Cove to chuckle. You were also smiling, even though your fingers had started to cramp after so much lemon compacting. I never did it, but I also wouldn't want to talk to the strangers like that. Yeah, I didn't try. Hey, that's fair. It was pretty awkward whenever anyone did come by. But man, all this business talk makes me think about how I only met either of you 'cause my dad partnered with Cove's dad's business. If that hadn't happened, you probably wouldn't have ever learned I existed. You'd still know each other, obviously. Derek squeezed his 12th lemon's chunk with a fittedly sour expression on his face. He'd accidentally made himself feel like a third wheel. In the cluster of human juicers, Derek was in the middle, yet he began to fade despite being right next to you. You and Cove looked at one another from over Derek's lowered head. Cove pushed himself to smile through his concern while also giving Derek's arm a little nudge with his elbow. I worry about that kind of thing sometimes too. If my dad hadn't picked this street to move to, I wouldn't have met Blake. The bravery he mustered began to disintegrate after putting the truth to the front of his mind. Cove swallowed bitterly. I don't like it when I start thinking about that. But my dad still would have had his business, so I still would have met you. Sheepishly, Derek pressed his shoulders up around his face. He managed a small smile. Yeah, it's rough for all of us. Where your parents live and what your parents do has to matter so much to everything. Derek bit his lip, unwilling to let himself continue to speak negatively. But, like a turtle coming out of his shell, Derek lifted himself off the counter and rejoined you and Cove at his regular eye level. We did meet each other, and we're friends. That's what counts. Exactly. What ifs don't make a difference because we're really all here. Yeah. Cove quietly watched over his friend, soothed by his uplifted mood. Then his lips parted as a pleasant thought came to mind. Hey, this is where I was standing when I first met you. Oh yeah. Derek bounced up on his toes and tossed the lemon piece he'd been working on over into the trash can. It landed inside perfectly. But I was on the other side of the counter back then, and now I'm here in the kitchen with you. That caught your ear and you lifted one of your brows. You remembered the night Cove told you he met a new kid named Derek, but he didn't say much about it. All you really knew was that their parents had started working together, and then Derek began to come around the neighborhood for visits. Derek could recognize an intrigued audience when he saw one, and did what he knew how to do, tell the rest of a story. Mr. Holden invited my dad over for a meal at his house after their partnership was official. He'd talked about Cove before, when him and my dad were getting to know each other. You can't get away from hearing about Mr. Holden's top-notch son if you spend any time with him. Off to the side, Cove mumbled with embarrassment over what he clearly thought was an unnecessary addition. Derek laughed the minor interruption off and went on. So my dad suggested that I come too, since we were the same age. Mr. Holden was apparently really into the idea. I had no idea what to expect from something like that, but I wanted to go to a sort of business dinner with my dad. It felt pretty cool to be invited, and then I went. Whatever I was imagining before I got there, Mr. Holden definitely wasn't it. I had thought my dad was casual for a professional business person, but Cove's dad takes the cake. A warmth came to Cove's expression. Not the red-hot heat of fluster from before, but a gentleness that was based in his honest love for his parent. A lot of people don't expect Dad to be how he is. What did you think about me when you first met me? Derek mindlessly scratched his damp hand against the back of his head. A stray lemon seed clung to one of the spikes of his hair. You didn't want to cut the two off, so the little bit went unmentioned. Honestly, when I spotted you in the back of the kitchen, I thought Mr. Holden had another older kid he was hiding, 'cause there was no way that guy was 13. You were so tall and fit, and you just stared at people. You seemed like a tough upper-grade teen who'd never talk to somebody like me. You snickered under your breath. If you didn't know any better, you'd think he was describing Elizabeth. Having that description be assigned to Cove Holden of all people was hilarious. Cove was equally startled by Derek's choice of words. His eyes opened wide in amazement. You thought I was tough? Yeah, I did, but, thought is definitely the right word for that. That instant put Cove in a pouty mood. He pressed both his palms against the marble countertop, not bothering to squeeze another lemon. Cove didn't want to play anymore. Derek leaned his shoulder against Cove's side affectionately. He reached past him to the lemon slice Cove wasn't using and started to juice it himself. Sorry, there's nothing wrong with being a softie. I like that about you. Bringing Derek's statement to life, Cove visibly relaxed his stance. The tone of his voice was equally delicate. I guess it's not bad. Cove was honestly kidding himself if he thought he was anything other than a sensitive sweetheart, but just like Derek, that was something you treasured about him. It's great, Cove. Cove took a new piece of fruit and rejoined the lemonade-making efforts. Derek pinched an eye shut from the tension of crushing a chunk in his fist. He hesitantly continued the topic. So, what about me? When you first met me, what kind of impression did you get? With much less force, Cove used both hands to work on his single lemon. He answered the question while staring off into space. That was likely the same expression Derek had seen the moment they'd met. The face he'd read as intimidating rather than easily distracted. I thought he probably likes sports. All three of you shook from laughter, bumping against each other with your closeness, like a bunch of grapes on a vine rustling in the wind. Okay. Blake, your turn. What did you think about me when we met? Oh. Your mind drifted back to a few months ago, before summer vacation had begun. You'd stepped out of your house late in the evening, and Cove was sitting on the curb with someone else. Someone you'd never seen in your life, not even passing at school. A green-eyed boy with a football jersey who was joking around light-heartedly with your longtime neighbor. You'd guessed immediately that he was the Derek kid from the Holden's new business relationship. That, or Cove had learned a magic spell to summon a new friend out of nowhere. You had stood there staring for only a second, but the newcomer noticed your presence quickly. He jumped right to his feet, jogged across the street, and stuck out his hand for you to shake. With the wide grin that you were so familiar with now, he introduced himself to you for the first time as Derek. Gotta say, yeah, probably the most polite teenager I'd ever met, because he's Mr. Manners, but it's so sweet. Thanks? Are you gonna tell me what you thought of me when we met? Derek's gaze shifted from the picture in front of him to settle on you instead. There was a focus in his eyes that made you hold your breath from anticipation. I thought you were really chill. You hoped you'd be able to inhale again after he spoke, but that only made it worse. You struggled to get any oxygen in. Not the well, I'm glad you didn't think I sucked. Jesus. I'm gonna go with thank you for telling me. It's no problem. Look at the little blushy boy. They're so sweet. By the way, you have a lemon seed in your hair. Or, sure, tell him. I think it's a fair rule to only point out things that can be fixed within like a couple of seconds, like a couple minutes. And the lemon seed can easily be taken care of. So it fits my little rule. Oh. Derek raked his hands through his light brown strands blindly. Unfortunately, he focused on the top and the sides, so he never hit the right spot. One of your hands covered the laughter coming out of your mouth, and you used the other to point out the target on the back of his head. Finally, he was able to brush the seed onto the floor. He bent down to pick it up and dropped it to the side on the counter. Y'all, I will be right back. I'm back, y'all. Sorry. Fucking pet parent things. Yoda decided he needed everything at the same time because, you know, why wouldn't he do that when I'm on Twitch? Okay. Let's hop back into this now that I can actually fucking focus, and we'll get back into making our goddamn lemonade. Okay, read that. Thanks, Blake. You're welcome. We could add a little of the lemon zest too. I'll do that. Cool beans. Derek fumbled to move the topic to something else. His darkening cheeks were probably the reason why. Do you have a grater or a peeler? Yeah. Cove gestured to the same drawer the knife had come from. Derek dug through it until he successfully retrieved a multi-textured grater. He took his stuff to the opposite side of the kitchen to not get in the way and worked with his back to you and Cove. Cove tilted his head thoughtfully. He was inspired by Derek's work ethic. If it's gonna be fancy lemonade with zest, then we should do that thing where you put whole slices in too. I can cut a few of the leftover lemons. Cool. Blake, can you pour the water and sugar in the pitcher so it can start to dissolve? Yep. You started by filling up the sparkly jug with chilled, filtered water from the fridge, and you remembered to put ice in the drink too. The diluted lemon juice sloshed around and threatened to spill over as you piled in the ice. You left some space for Cove's lemon slices. Finally, you took hold of the hefty bag of white sugar and pulled it close to the counter's edge. Stray grains of sugar that coated the bag came to stick against your still damp fingers instead. You felt like you were building a sandcastle at the beach. How much sugar do people put in lemonade? Let's see. You've got just a pinch, half a cup, a full cup, 2 cups, or you just poured sugar in until it piled at the bottom of the glass. I'm gonna go with 2 cups, I guess. I don't know. I don't make or drink lemonade, so I don't know how much is good. We'll do 2. You searched around the kitchen until you found a colorful ceramic mixing spoon. You dunked it into the pitcher and carefully stirred. A quiet smile grew on your face as you watched the bits of sugar swirl around in the pale yellow drink. At this point, the separate ingredients had truly come together to become lemonade. Round and round you turned the spoon. It was almost hypnotic the way the juice swirled inside the pitcher. Your trance was broken by a sharp hiss at your side. You dropped the spoon, losing it in the depths of the lemonade, and snapped your head towards Cove. Oh, did he get his finger? He was holding his left hand up to his face. A thick bubble of dark red had slipped down from one of his fingers and left a streak over his palm. Oh, ouch. You okay? Cove plainly shrugged. It's nothing. Without even thinking about it, Cove reached his hand down to wipe the mess on his pants. Luckily for his trousers, Derek flipped around at the commotion. His tense, worried face took in the scene, and a disbelieving shout startled Cove into freezing. Don't do that. Cove stared incredulously from the corner of his eyes, with an arm awkwardly sticking out from his side. His sudden pause in a strange position reminded you of the red light, green light game you'd played at your elementary school, except there was no green and only red in Cove's version. I'm fine. No way. Seriously, Cove, you have to take care of that. Derek stretched his arms high to grasp the taller teen by the shoulders. He stepped backwards, getting Cove to move with him. We're gonna clean that off for real. Cove muttered an averted fine as he stumbled along with Derek, who was reversing out of the kitchen. Blake, do you mind cleaning up the cutting board? No, I'll take care of it. You gathered the knife onto the cutting board and brought it over to the trash. The lemon slices couldn't be used in a drink after that. You used the knife to scrape them off and into the bag. Then you got to rinsing the board and knife in the sink with soap and hot water. You switched between staring down at the suds and checking over the counter for the boys. You were careful not to accidentally get a cut of your own, but it was hard not to wonder what was going on down the hall. By the time you'd finished washing up, Cove and Derek re-emerged in the living room. An unassuming brown bandage was wrapped around the cut on Cove's finger. It's okay, it wasn't deep. We washed it off, got it clean, put a bandage on it. Good as new. Derek marched with confidence right back into the kitchen. Cove hesitated in the living room. He waved apologetically. Hey, you're really okay? I definitely am. I just nicked myself when a lemon slipped. The juice stinging me was way worse than the cut itself. Oh yeah, to get the slice on your finger with the lemon and the burn. That's a relief. Thanks for helping, Derek. Thank you too. It's cleaner in here. He held his hand up to you for a high five. It had been washed clean of the lemon juice that coated it before. Slap his hand. You swung your palm forward and clapped Derek back. He pumped his arms enthusiastically as a follow-up. Cove walked over to join the two of you, smiling ruefully. Thanks for caring. Always, man. Now what? Well, he took a second to look between you and Cove as he puzzled out a next step, and then he beamed. Let's try our lemonade. It doesn't need the slices or the zest. Derek gave an exaggerated wave across from the front of his chest, blowing the whole thing off. Cove eagerly supported the sentiment. He was more than ready to put the prior incident behind him. Yeah, lemonade doesn't need to be fancy. It's lemonade. Aw, cute. Oh, not the abandoned spoon from earlier. Oof. Derek nodded twice as he strained to lift the nearly full pitcher. He had to balance on his tiptoes to pour the juice into the set of 3 glasses that had been put out earlier. If Derek noticed there was a spoon clattering around in there, he pretended that he didn't. Thank you. At the same time, Cove and Derek tipped their cups and took full gulps of the drink. It's sweet. So was his expression while he said it. Yep, it's very sweet, but that's good. You gladly joined them in taking a sip, enjoying every drop of your hard work. It was absolutely refreshing. Cove chugged the rest of his drink, then placed the empty cup down firmly. His enthusiasm was continuing to rise. Let's fill the water balloons. Slowly, cautiously, Derek questioned Cove's plan. He didn't want to ruin things, but expressing concern was more important. Will you really be alright in a water balloon fight, with your finger and stuff? Cove remained relaxed in the face of Derek's worry. He wasn't going to bring the mood down after the commotion he caused earlier. He responded to the inquiry by slickly pulling out the big gun. Your neighbor smirked as he held up his left arm over his chest, showing the full length of the jagged, pale scar that marked him. "I've had worse." Derek's eyes widened and his mouth was stuck, hanging open. You'd seen Derek in a swimsuit. He didn't have a single scratch on his skin, or if he did, it was tiny enough to be covered by nothing more than neon shorts. He could only imagine what Cove had gone through to get an injury with such a lasting impact. So, if Cove Holden said he could manage a cut, he could manage that cut. Whoa, you're pretty tough after all. The compliment had Cove preening. He caressed his trusty scar and giggled childishly. "Yeah, you make a good point. All right, let's do it." Nothing else needed to be said. The three of you busted open the bag of water balloons, pushed the tools of your lemonade production aside, and got to work on another summer group project. You stretched the open end of the water balloon over the faucet. The plastic fit snugly around the silver spout. You still kept your hands on it to make certain the water balloon didn't pop off and shoot a stream into your face like a busted water fountain. Oh no. Derek flipped the handle up for you, and the first saggy balloon rapidly expanded. Out of the bag, the balloon was a dark emerald color, but in only a few seconds, the bloated sack of water had stretched so thin that the green had become almost translucent. It was as pale as Cove's hair. Before it was pushed beyond its limits, Derek turned the faucet off again. You carefully pinched the strained top of your perfectly plump toy and then harvested it off the silver vine. Cove reached out for it as he intended to tie the balloons while you and Derek continued filling. Derek looked between the balloon and Cove's hand and called a timeout. He'd been a little overeager to get involved and realized in that moment that their team arrangement wasn't the most efficient. He requested to switch positions with Cove. Cove rolled his eyes but couldn't argue. His bandage could easily be yanked right off by the taut loops of plastic that formed around the fingers while tying them. Your optimized party got back into action, with you hooking balloons into place, Cove handling the water distribution, and Derek sealing the deal with a knot. Soon you had a couple dozen shiny water balloons overflowing in the sink basin. Cove pushed off from the counter silently. He disappeared from the kitchen and left you and Derek wondering. He went down the hall into his bedroom. He was only gone for a minute before stepping back into the hall with a pure, white, full-speckled laundry basket. The point of that was obvious, but his choice of bin did get a bit of ribbing from Derek. "Did you dump your clothes on the floor for that?" "Yeah, they were already dirty." "Oh." Derek blinked. He hadn't expected that to be true or for Cove to be so straightforward about it. You snickered at the exchange, still casually leaning against the sink. When Cove dropped the very newly emptied laundry basket on the tile, you cradled a few water balloons in your arms and placed them inside. Cove and Derek joined in with the transfer. Eventually, every water balloon had safely made it into the basket. "Nice work." Derek and Cove each took one side and lifted, while you helped steer by grabbing the back end. Moving as one, the three of you shuffled out of the kitchen and through the living room to take your treasure chest of jiggly jewels into the neighborhood. The door was opened, the drop from the curb to the street was overcome, and you successfully placed the laundry basket in the center of the empty road. "Well, we're here." "We are here." Derek slowly curled and uncurled his fist. Cove didn't take his eyes off of you or Derek. No one made a move for the pile. Damn, okay, drama. You broke the pause and grabbed a weapon. Cove lashed out like a snake at your move and got his hands around a balloon of his own before you could do anything with yours. But Derek wasn't going to be left behind either. He stuck both his hands deep into the mass and came out with 2 balloons. In quick succession, Derek launched one shot at you and the other at Cove. Ah! You felt the impact of a solid object slamming against your chest before it burst into a million pieces, and a shock of cold water seeped into the front of your shirt. Cove was left sputtering, and with a dark stain at the lower edge of his top. He shook the hit off and chucked a balloon directly at Derek in return. It exploded against his right shoulder. No one was dry anymore, and no one was safe. The war was on. I don't know, run to put distance between you and them? Getting a hit in was far lower priority than not getting hit again. You hightailed it out of the danger zone with your water balloon in hand. The 2 boys dug into the pile yet again to restock their supplies. The water balloon fight was in full force. Derek sprinted up and down the street, making himself a moving target. He'd only make a mad dash for the center area when he ran out of balloons. Cove had no fear of being an easy mark and stayed right by the laundry basket, lobbing strike after strike at you and Derek. Hid in your home's doorway and took shots from cover. The walls of your family household proved to be a perfect line of defense. You rarely had the chance to get a balloon and throw it, but the boys almost never got a clear shot at you. Laughter and water splashes filled the normally quiet Sunset Bird neighborhood. You were convinced the mean grandparents would jump out and shout about the noise. Luckily, no one interrupted your revelry, and even if someone had, they would have been putting their dryness at risk by confronting your group. Rapidly, the amount of balloons dwindled until each person only had one left in hand, and the laundry basket had nothing except a little puddle at the bottom with scraps of rubber scattered in it. Arms were held high in the air, taking aim, and eyes shifted from one option to the other. Derek wound his hand further back. Cove and you couldn't take your eyes off him. Your teeth gritted as you tried desperately to calculate where the balloon would fly. Would it be Cove or you? However, Derek chose neither. He launched it straight up in the air. It reached an impressive height. You could barely see the speck of yellow against the vast blue sky, until it inevitably sailed back down and smacked against the tarmac. Derek broke into more snickers the exact moment the balloon broke into 1,000 drops of water. He wasn't the only one amused by the stunt. Cove's smile bent, and he opened his fingers to let his balloon drop harmlessly to the ground. Cove didn't pick it back up. Instead, he brutally brought his foot against his own weapon and decimated it under his heel. A jovial truce had been formed between the two. Break it against my own head, 1,000%. If no one was throwing balloons at each other anymore, that didn't mean you had to waste a shot. You positioned the balloon at the center of your forehead and pressed unforgivingly until it popped. Derek and Cove exclaimed in amazement. It was like you'd done that party trick where you crushed a soda can against your head. Or as if you were Derek crushing a piece of pie onto his own face to entertain his brothers. That was how the grandest battle your neighborhood had likely ever seen came to an end. You were all dripping wet and out of breath, and you couldn't be happier. Derek rubbed his hands together in satisfaction before crouching to the ground to start collecting tiny bits of water balloon debris. Cove strolled around to gather the confetti-like trash on his own accord as well. There didn't have to be a discussion. Derek and Cove had that quality in common, a distaste for litter. You appreciated that about both of them and joined in to help pick up the pieces off the ground. You quietly wandered around, filling your fists with the rubbery remains as the sun crept behind the condo roofs. Your shadows grew longer in the waning light. You felt the damp cling of your clothes more acutely as the excitement died down. Your team managed to finish cleaning before night had completely fallen. All of the trash was dumped into a tall green trash can at the side of Cove's house, with all that remained of the carnage being a few drying watermarks spotting in the street. Your group had returned to the state you'd originally started in, directionless relaxation. Cove had been perfectly willing to return to his house while still wet and scrounge up fresh glasses of lemonade. Plus, he had your little umbrellas tucked under his arm. It was a struggle to balance it all. But Cove took one for the team as someone who actually lived there. You and Derek didn't have to go in and make a mess of the Holden home, though you imagined Cove's dad wouldn't have cared. He passed a drink to you and one to Derek, then used his free hand to flip the laundry basket over. It was less flimsy than it looked because Cove sat on it and it didn't buckle at all. Derek politely passed on the seat Cove provided. He remained standing while shifting his weight from one foot to the other. I don't know, sit on the ground. If you cared about keeping your clothes pristine, you wouldn't have gotten into a water balloon fight. A bit of dirt couldn't hurt. Cove quietly took a sip of his lemonade. Derek circled the top of his glass with the tip of one finger, watching Cove. How's your hand? Cove savored another taste of the drink, letting out a refreshed sigh, and then answered. It's still fine. Derek really is like the dad parent. Like, oh my god, he's so concerned for everyone. He's like, how are you? Are you okay? Are you good? Cool. The ritual of checking on him was complete, and Derek could only chuckle bashfully over his habit. Cove smiled over the rim of his cup. There was comfort in knowing Derek would always care. Before enjoying the rest of the lemonade, Cove remembered to anoint his cup with one of the mini tropical umbrellas. Derek and you both got your own from the box. You got to have pretty fancy lemonade after all. The air was warm enough to be comfortable, even with your wet clothes. Lemonade, little umbrellas, and good company. That was what days like these were for. It couldn't get much better. Cove agreed contentedly, without you even having to say so. Summer really is the best season. I think so too. Not summer is the worst of them. You know what, for the sake of this, I'll say me 3, 'cause that's cute. Awesome. A gentle expression rested on Derek's face as he spoke softly. It'd be nice if things could be like this all the time, huh? But then Derek lifted his glass and spoke in mock outrage to the world at large. Why can't it always be summer break? Despite it being an obvious joke, Derek's words struck a chord with Cove. His total chill hardened into seriousness. He downed his second glass of lemonade and hopped onto his feet. I'm gonna go check something. You should come. both of you. He considered that a sufficient offer because Cove simply walked back to the front of his house and left the empty glass at the side of the door. Derek's gaze followed his friend and he lifted one brow. What are we gonna see? You'll see when we get there. You're probably gonna try and talk me out of it, so you don't need to know now. What? He almost dropped his cup. Derek twisted his head to track Cove's moves with his saucer-wide eyes. Blake is gonna get it. Oh yeah, I'd take that bet. Come on. Still completely confident, Cove strolled up the road. Derek gulped, but not the lemonade. He pointed a panicked glance at you. We should go. You pushed yourself off your seat and stood by Derek. All right. Derek hooked his own hand through the side of the handle of the laundry basket. He jogged on his tiptoes over to Cove's condo. The bin bumped along against the street behind him. He flung it in front of him and left it there in the entry. He placed his half-empty lemonade by Cove's. You were right behind him. You dropped the little umbrellas into the laundry basket and completed the set of glasses by placing yours next to theirs. Let's go. After another light jog, you caught up to Cove. He was going at a leisurely pace and smirked when he saw the two of you in the corner of his vision. Hey. Hi. Together, you, Cove, and Derek left your neighborhood and returned to the main sidewalk that you took to reach the grocery store hours earlier. An exchange of glances between you and Derek was the only interaction you had during the walk. Cove kept his sun-kissed face forward and his mouth shut. Shopping wasn't on your neighbor's mind because that building was passed without acknowledgement. He was taking you further down the path. Only about a minute later, your progress was halted by a row of strikingly orange traffic cones and a string of droopy "Do Not Cross" banners. Should we go around? No, we're here. Huh? Derek stalled. Cove, however, got onto his knees in front of the blocked-off area. His eyes were glinting with intention. I saw this when we were leaving, but people were working on it. The concrete is still wet, and there's no one around now. Yet again, Cove had knocked a gasp out of Derek. You're not gonna mess with it, right? Cove didn't have to say anything to answer. He shared a coy smile, and that was enough. Oh, Cove, that is really bad. The grin on Derek's face trembled, both from laughter threatening to spill out and the fear of getting in trouble. Yeah, it makes sense why you didn't say this before. Cove fearlessly stuck his fingers into the muddy gray concrete. He slowly etched out a series of numbers. When he was done, the corner of the block had 2011 scribbled into it for all to see. He surveyed his work with pride while wiping his dirtied finger on the side of his pant leg. All three of our initials is cool. There was plenty of space for you to get the signatures in there. The three pairs of letters were written all around Cove's 2011. That's nice. Derek stared hard at the soft, forbidden canvas and slowly crouched down. He paused, bit his lip, then ultimately pressed one finger into the tacky surface to leave a small print. He'd left a sign of his presence there on that day, right along with you and Cove. Relief came to Derek's features once he'd finished. Hopefully it dries before anybody finds out. Yeah. The single word was only a whisper, but it was warm and pure. Thanks for taking us, Cove. You're welcome. Cove dusted his pants off as he stood after a job well done. Derek shot up as well, newly invigorated. He looked to the sky and squinted at the sun. The day was coming to an end, but no one could say your group had wasted it. That was true for the entire summer. No matter what happened when school started again, and when an unknown future arrived, you'd still have all the memories you made together when you had the chance and the things you left behind. Okay, y'all. So I know we're only about halfway in the stream. However, I am also not feeling all that hot. So I do think I'm gonna call it here. I don't know how long Siblings and Boardwalk are, so we'll try and get both done tomorrow. If we only get one done, that's fine. We are learning that these moments are very like a lot longer than the regular moments. So if we just do one a day, I can fucking live with that. That means sometime next week we'll get into step 3. But thank you so much for hanging out with me. I do appreciate you. Let's do a quick save. And then I'm gonna go get some rest because a bitch is not doing all that hot, but it's okay. As always, I hope you enjoy your night. All that good shit. Thank you for viewing. I appreciate you. And as always, take care of yourselves. Be kind to yourselves. It's hard being a person. You're doing the best you can. I am proud of you. And don't forget to live a life that pisses off a bigot. Bye, y'all.